So, can I ask you a question? When you meet somebody new, what's one of the first questions that you're asked? And usually it's, what do you do? And I've realized something recently. I'm not very fond of that question. In fact, not recently. I know it's spoiled a few conversations actually where I've been getting to know somebody on a very different level and then somebody leaps into the conversation with what do you do then? And it changes the dynamic somehow because um not because it's a bad question. It's just that I think we do something with the answer that's not always helpful because when within a few seconds of hearing what somebody does, we've put that person into a box. Yeah, whether they're a teacher, a nurse, a practitioner, a salesperson, a business owner, a business analyst, I don't know, a management accountant, whether they're retired, whether they're a student, it's almost like we think that's the most interesting thing about somebody. And yet it's often the least interesting thing about them, although some people have got some very cool roles, I have to say. And today I went to a women's networking group and it was held in the most beautiful setting. We met at our local theatre, which has been recognised as one of the most beautiful cinemas in the world. And we had a tour. So we had the networking meeting, then we had a tour, and we saw all of the beautiful Art Deco glass and some beautiful murals, chatted about the history, ghosts, of course, ghosts in a theatre. There always are, aren't there? And afterwards, a few of us went for coffee. But I was mulling over, that when people were introducing themselves at the networking group, um, many of us referred back to previous careers because it adds something to what we do now. But it's almost like, I don't know, I do wonder sometimes whether I'm holding on to those old titles, although they do come into the work that I'm doing, I suppose. Um, anyway, we went for coffee, just good conversation, not chit-chatting about anything in particular. Um, but that whole thing about, yeah, that self-esteem, again, it's down to this self-esteem. My self-esteem is not about what my job title is, but I think it used to be. I think a lot of my self-esteem was actually what other people thought of my job title. And sometimes I still get a bit uncomfortable because I'm working in a pub a couple of evenings a week. It's one in a village outside of the little town that I'm in, and I'm getting to know people there, which is fabulous. But sometimes people treat you differently when you're working behind a bar than when they might do if they met you in a different setting. That's quite interesting to see that human observation, I suppose, and see that difference. But I was also chatting to a guy who is a teacher, but he was a head teacher, and he's had some life changes, and he's moved and various things. So he's now as a teacher rather than a head teacher. Um, but that experience from where he is currently is he's feeling like that's not really appreciated at all. And, we were talking about, is it an ageist thing? Or is it not? I'm not sure it is, but I also do think that people just want to put you in a box, you know? Um, whereas an engineer, for example, won't won't stop solving problems just because they've got a new job title. A nurse doesn't stop um, noticing when somebody isn't okay. A teacher doesn't stop teaching, although they might also know how to coach or mentor as well. Um, a hairdresser probably doesn't stop making people feel comfortable and being a great listener just because they're not a hairdresser anymore. And so the years as a business analyst that I've had, the sales career that I had before that, and the mentoring I do now, they're not really separate careers at all. They all sort of pull on similar curiosity and knowledge and ability to sort of put pieces together. I'm still curious, I'm still analysing, I'm still asking questions, still looking for patterns, actually, and still helping people make sense of complicated things sometimes, or what feels complicated to them. And don't we all know that sometimes somebody else can just shine a spotlight on something and we're like, oh, why didn't I notice that? So that's what I help people with. And so everything that I've done, I think, is woven into who I am today. But I don't think they're part of my self-esteem anymore, generally. But just because these experiences shape us and continue to shape us actually all the way through, it doesn't really mean the outside world always sees their value. And yeah, so part of the reason why my clients work with me is because of all of that experience. But I work from home a lot, I work on Zoom a lot. I'm in a new area. I've been trying to get out and meet people like the pub job and stuff, but I thought, okay, I'm going to try and get a couple of days a week role employed. It'll get me out of the house. I want to work with a bit of a team. It'll give me a bit of a routine. And yeah, that feels really good to me. But when I've applied, my experiences don't seem to count anymore. It's like maybe I'm overqualified, maybe I'm too old, maybe I'm not what they're looking for, and that's okay. But I know that some of my competencies are really high in those areas. Um, Maybe that's just how recruitment works nowadays. I don't know. But it has made me stop and think, because the value isn't in the job title, but who gets to decide when our experience has no value or is still valuable? Because I think everything that we do along the way of our lives, the conversations, the mistakes, the confidence, the resilience, the things that we know and learned and have tried in the past, um, the way we see the world, because of everything that's come before. Um, s- so maybe that's why I'm not fond of the question, so what do you do? Because I think I'd rather know, what have you learned? What experiences have you had? Um, yeah, what's the most exciting thing that's ever happened to you? Those questions, what's shaped you? The good, the bad, the exciting, the ugly. What experiences have shaped you and made you the person sitting opposite me today? And I can damn well tell you, excuse my language, that it's not going to be your job title. Anyway, that is what's been rattling around in my head today. So thanks for listening. Thank you for being here. I'd love to know your thoughts on that, and I'll catch you tomorrow. All the best. Bye.